Hello, welcome to Wargamer. I'm your host, Rob. In this video, I'm going to be talking about the upcoming Kharadron Overlords release. Now, before you turn off the video, I know the 6 or 7 of you that care are going to maybe keep watching, but for the rest of you, I'm going to pitch you the concept of Kharadron Overlords being cool. When they were first released, about 6 years ago, I think that's about right, the idea of Sky Pirate Dwarfs is very cool, and it made everyone in the Age of Sigmar community very excited because there was the idea that maybe we would see more Sky Pirates, Sky Pirate Goblins, Sky Pirate Elves, etc., etc. And so far, that hasn't obviously materialized in the Mortal Realms, which I'm sure we're all very sad about. But the idea of dwarfs in boats, flying around, doing small crimes, a bit of piracy, some trading, and being a general mercantile faction, I think is thematically incredibly cool. And I love the minis. I really do. Now, on the tabletop, they've had a bit of a tough time of it because of their limited roster with 3 large vehicles, which are all basically gunboats or transport boats, and then some dudes that stand on the ground or little small units, as in units of 3 that are upgradable to unit 6. They've never really had the capacity to either build like a horde-style army or even like elite combat units, although I guess if you take a lot of the balloon dudes, you are building an elite combat unit. And so they've been hyper-focused on being a very aggressive gun platform shooting army, which has led many people to say that they are kind of like a 40k army in Age of Sigmar. Also, because of this, and because of the sheer amount of shooting they do, they're either really, really, really good, or they're no good. And that has been a constant issue, I think, for the Kharadron Overlords fan base as well. What's true is they are a really thematic army, and I really think they deserve their place in the Age of Sigmar fandom, and Games Workshop seems to have also agreed with this because we're going to be seeing new Battletome and new miniatures. Now, this also puts to bed the idea of a combined Dwarden book, like the Uruk War Clans, where we see 2 or 3 different Uruk armies, or 2 at this stage, Uruk armies in the Uruk War Clan book. There has been rumors that we'll see both Fyreslayers and Kharadron Overlords, and maybe the Dispossessed from Cities of Sigmar, although I think they're going to the old world, them all being rolled up into this combined Dwarden book. However, with the release of purely the Kharadron Overlords, this has put a big question mark around the Fyreslayers army, because there have been rumors from some like internet sources that Fyreslayers may be going the way of the Dodo. I would be sad to see this happen, and I'm hoping we see them at least get painted with, like, my hot take is they're actually going to be painted with little evil mustaches, and they're going to start calling them Chaos Dwarfs, but we'll have to see. Either way, KO now are their own faction with an expanded roster, which is very cool, and I'm sure if they're expanding the roster a little bit, they'll eventually expand it even more. And let me know in the comments below what other stuff you'd like to see added to the KO roster, which is very limited, what you'd like to see added to really expand it out. I think people have talked about things like golems, more like heavily armored infantry units, so you could build them in a slightly different way. I think all of those are very cool. Maybe even little KOs on, cavalry KO on little rockets or something flying around, maybe a unit of 5 upgradable to a unit of 10. However, one of the things most people were not expecting were boobs. See, it's really hard being a content creator, because when you create content online, there's a lot of normal people. There's the people who I'm live streaming to, and there's you people watching at home, right? And the issue is, for no reason at all, people just hate women. And as soon as I'm about to talk about women dwarfs, people will hate it. And those people obviously are freaks, and please don't watch my stuff. But it's insane. And for some reason will become like an issue, and it doesn't really matter at all, and is actually really, really cool, and I want more of it. So anyway, let's have a look at what Games Workshop have said. So we've got this brand new mini. These mercantile Dwarden ply the skies in Endrin-powered airships hunting for Aether Gold, working as mercenaries and tirelessly seeking new ways to turn profit. With their enemies fielding wizards and priests, these inventive Dwarden have developed a response, the Null-Khemist. Now this is really important because obviously dwarfs, specifically the KO, have always struggled in the magic that is the mortal realms. The whole thing is predicated on magic. Each realm is dedicated to one of the essences of magic based on the laws from old Warhammer Fantasy battles, which is funny because ironically it's no longer in the old world, those laws, so that's quite fun. However, they've never really engaged in magic. Therefore, you do need some anti-magic, otherwise they can't really play in that game. And in Age of Sigmar 4, with the focus on loads of manifestations being free and magic generally being much more popularized, you do need some sort of answer. And they've come up with this, the Null-Khemist. Now, this is quite an interesting model because I don't think you know if it's coming or going. I don't know if this is the back of the mini or the front of the mini. I do know that this part of the mini is where it's going to break a lot. However, yes, I think it's pretty cool. I think one of Games Workshop's biggest mistakes that they have with KO is the paint job that they put on these minis. The overt brass generally tends to make the whole thing look a little bit samey, even with all these like fun, like mirrored effects that they do on the glass and all those other elements. I think it can look a little bit bland because of all the metal. However, it's cool, and we've got extra balloons. I guess when we first initially saw some dudes with balloons, they said to themselves, how do we make it so that these are different to the balloon guys before? And I guess the answer we've come up with is add more balloons. So you've got balloons on top of balloons now to really emphasize their balloonage. Talking about their role as an anti-wizard, the brainchild of the Aether-Khemist Guild, the Null Suit is a premium piece of gear crafted from Nullstone meteorites that have fallen from etheric void. These heavy dust duty suits allow their wearers to withstand most hazardous environments imaginable, even the lands corrupted by the Skaven during the Hour of Ruin. Whew. Okay. And here you can see some more details on these miniatures. And again, there's lots of like runes and other little bits, which would be really fun to have picked out in maybe a brighter color, a different paint scheme, I think would do really good. And I've seen some incredible KO paint jobs, even something like simple as a glossy metallic silver. My friend Andy, he has that. He plays the TSN Arena sometimes here in Nottingham. And yeah, that definitely pops a lot more than I think this does personally. Right, a hazy aura of Nulgash shields nearby allies from deleterious magic. So I'm assuming this is going to have an aura where you're going to be able to either have a spell ignore or you're going to be able to deny manifestations or something similar, which is good because you've also got in the new Scourging around updates, if you go back and watch my video when I talked about KO, you also got an update to be able to ignore some spells as well. So even more spell ignoring is pretty good. Okay, the face of Wizard Priest or Conjure Manifestation. It can be especially lethal. Definitely don't try this at home. So this could be a situation where you're also going to do damage back to the wizards who cast the spells, which is interesting. And this Fumigator type weapon is apparently specifically anti-wizard. I'm assuming it's just going to be anti-wizard Rend 1, but maybe it'll do more than that. Who knows? Overall, I quite like the model, but I think it's a little busy and I'm confused in what it's trying to do. Right, for next up, for a little more recklessness, look no further than the headstrong Vongrim Salvagers, who eschew a long-range firepower for their rattle of cutlasses, punchy report of pistols. So this is a dual kit, buildable between both. And at this point, we must note that we've got some lady dwarfs, which we are excited about. Putting to bed the question from when the dwarfs go, because, or where do they come from? Because they be fucking. That's a simple answer that you need to know. Them dwarves, they're doing crimes, they're doing merchant stuff, they're drinking beers, I assume. They're out there with hook hands, and they be out there. That's all I'm going to say. Anyway, this kit also continues on like kind of the age-old tradition of a Kharadron Overlords kit. Not as bad as the next kit. Kharadron Overlords kit having multiple weapon options. Look, our little champion has got he's got a hook and a gun as opposed to a blade and a gun. Now, this is really nice for KO because this means that you're going to have a unit that's a unit of 5, upgradable to a unit of 10, which we really love because this means you're going to have more units on the board and you're going to have more scalability, which is really good for KO army because generally only had that in the Arcanaut company, which was 10 models upgradable to a unit of 20. So this gives you 5 to 10, which is good because it means you now have got like a range of infantry style options. You know, that means your balloon boys, these different balloon boys and girls, different balloon people, which are 3 to 6s, you can now have 5s to 10s. That's good. It means you can make your 3s to 6s more elite. And your 5 to 10s can be a kind of more mid-range, which is really, really good. Okay, the robot parrot is also excellent as well. What do I think of these? This is a great question. I'm not really sure what the concept is with the robotic balloon backpacks, but They're definitely fascinating. It kind of giving me like weird, like 1980s sci-fi vibes, and I'm kind of liking it. The other version of this is the Vongrim Harpoon crew, and these are good for fighting against monsters. And this is definitely a cursed weapon loadout with one guy with a harpoon, one guy with a trident, another guy with a giant gun, a lady with what looks to be a pistol and an eyeglass. So there's definitely a scope for a range of different weapon options here. Ultimately, these will be some good anti-monster weapons, which I think is good. Have that in the roster as well. And again, upgradable from 5 to 10. I really, really like the unhelmeted versions. I love the big-ass ginger beard. Getting back to the roots of that classic dwarven look. Didn't mind the big helmet plates, but obviously those headpieces are great. I'm sure they're probably a dual kits. I love the eye patch, like dual head, like you'll be able to have head swaps, right? You'll have the normal heads, have the other heads. That's great as well. Next up, we got what is taking the internet by storm. As Kharadron Overlords know that good business is proactive, they have even innovated their defensive platform from the new Zentari Endrin Dock. Now, this follows on with the theme that everything in Age of Sigmar 4 is getting its own terrain, or every army is getting their own terrain piece, and also they're getting their own manifestations. Because you don't have any wizards in this army, it was a big question mark about what was going to happen. Were you going to end up with some priests for the Kharadron Overlords? Or, in this version, are we going to end up with some sort of mechanical invention? And we've ended up with some mechanical invention, which I think is cool as well, because it really defines or starts to add a new element to what we could see in the Age of Sigmar, where it's been generally wizards and priests. Now we can really have invention being a new, alchemic art added to rosters, and that's fun because it doesn't just rely on it being one or the other. This is obviously a terrain piece. I think people have been calling it the Floataloo because the Stormcast Eternals piece of terrain was nicknamed the Portaloo. A lot of people have been calling this the Floataloo, which I'm not really sure. This also looks like it's going to be a mobile terrain piece as well that's going to service in some way to probably heal or protect your ships, so your big frigates and your ironclads and your gunboats flying around. And you see these 3 little robot automatons. These also seem to have a job as well. Originally created by the weaponsmith of Battletome, this mobile platform is designed to accompany a Skyfleet into combat. A single overseer operates controls, pulling levers and yanking pulleys to help out with repairs and ensure the payload of auto engines are deployed where they are needed most. So likely these things will deploy around wherever this central piece of terrain is. Each is a wonder of aether engineering, powered by complex ethemic algorithms. These can nullify manifestations, so turning off manifestations, big deal. Deploy stun clouds, reducing down movement or slowing down charges, and drop grudge blast demolitions, which I'm assuming is going to be like 2+ to do D3 mortals or something similar. So I quite like these. I think these are very fun. These look obviously incredibly thematic in conjunction with what the KO book is, which is we love. We love that. That's great. We want more of that. I think this is cool. It means also if you're a KO player, you don't have to just go and buy a bunch of the generic manifestations as well, which is good because you've just all of a sudden been given some sort of magic item that lets you cast like a wizard. So it really lets you just stay true to what the faction is trying to be, which I think is nice. Enterprising admirals everywhere have spotted plenty of new opportunities to scour for Aether Gold and plunder the regions previously hazard to explore. And so the Skyfleets are on the move once more in the upcoming Battletome Kharadron Overlords. I got to say, I'm a huge fan of this art cover. I like the painted style that gives it that kind of wistful, past era flying look to it. I think that's really, really nice. A lady dwarf on the front cover, I think, is good and really identifies both Age of Sigmar as different to a lot of its contemporaries, which I think is good as well. I think it's cool, thematic, weird. Weird in a way that really is only AOS. And that is something that's a positive, not a negative. That's just badass. You show that to someone, they'll be like, it's a real visual story on the front cover, and it's nice to see, and especially it's not copy and pasted. There's also a new spearhead as well. I'm assuming this spearhead isn't as good as the old Start Collecting or whatever it was previously called. The old battle boxes, normally they're more expensive and you get less minis inside of it. On the topic, though, of the Kharadron Overlords Battletome, I'm pretty excited to see 2 ways to play this army. I want a way to play a combat-orientated version of Kharadron Overlords, and I want a way to see a shooting version of Kharadron Overlords. That's what I especially want to see. It would be really good to get some sort of objective holding version of Kharadron Overlords as well, especially Archanaut Company. I wouldn't mind seeing those getting some real bonuses for holding objectives, like big bonuses, like good armor saves. When you're talking about those models, normally they've got 1 health each, and I think on a 5-up save at the moment in Age of Sigmar, I wouldn't mind seeing them going up to maybe having a couple of wounds, so that a unit of 10 is 20 health on an objective, unit of 20 is 40, can really start to compete with some of those other units like Warriors of Chaos, Ard Boys, in the job role of holding objectives and really designing your army around something slightly different. I love the idea of transporting over a unit of Archanaut Company who are going to hold an objective, and then the balloons float off and go do their stuff. It will add less fragility to the army, which I think could be really positive. We'll see if the game designers decide to do that. And that's everything, I guess, from this kind of update, which is interesting because now we've ended up with, we've had Idoneth Deepkin previewed, which we're excited about. We've had Khorne previewed as well, which we're excited about, and now Kharadron Overlords. And it's pretty weird for them to normally release information about these one after the other, but not release them. They might release all of them like on a single weekend, which would be pretty crazy. But I would expect to see these over the next couple of months. So releasing them this early does feel very weird, especially when we're just off the back of the GHB release. We're all trying out those new missions and playing them. We're all trying out what the new battle tactics are and learning the game. We've just had all of those Scourge of Garan War Scrolls as well. So it really feels like the tempo of Age of Sigmar is keeping up, like keeping really high. Like it's a pretty frenetic schedule. Maybe it's just because with the new Horus Heresy coming out as an example, maybe we're just going to get a very slow autumn where we're not going to get a lot of AOS news. And of course this year we are expecting the Chaos Dwarf release to come out at some point. So lots of stuff happening very soon. I kind of expect these 3 Battletomes to release sometime in the next 2 to 3 months. Maybe even, we have seen before, Games Workshop just release 2 Battletomes in a weekend. So they could get this out very, very quickly. It really does depend. So lots happening in Age of Sigmar. Very excited. Let me know in the comments below what you think. I personally am happy to see a more expanded range for KO. Really hoping for expanded range for Fire Slayers as well. Thanks for watching. See you soon.